And then you said that you thought maybe Matt had seen him.
That's correct.
And Matt is Mr. Albenze?
Yes.
And then you said he may have broken in.
Correct.
And then you said maybe Larry English is over on his property.
Yes.
And later you indicated that you thought that maybe Mr. Arbery had been caught.
Yes.
And then you said that you thought maybe he was trying to get away from the police.
Yes, ma'am.
But you hadn't heard any sirens or anything in the neighborhood.
Not yet. No, ma'am.
So I want to talk to you about some of the legal terms that you used yesterday, okay? All right, so first I want to talk to you kind of about probable cause, all right? And you testified yesterday that you had been trained in the military for the Coast Guard, that even when you had arrest powers, before you could arrest somebody, you needed probable cause, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and you even gave the jury the definition of probable cause, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you said it was a level of suspicion by a reasonable and prudent person, given the overall circumstances, to believe a crime has been committed.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But that's really only half the definition, isn't it?
That's what I was taught in my training, was that definition right there.
So, isn't it correct that, well, let me ask it this way. Didn't you learn from your training that you need two parts?
Reasonable suspicion first, and then probable cause.
So, isn't it true from your training that you need two parts of probable cause? You need probable cause that a crime has actually been committed, and that the person you're arresting is the one who committed the crime.
That would be correct.
All right. But you left out the second part, that you actually have to have probable cause that the person you're arresting is actually the one committing the crime.
That makes sense. I mean, that was the person that I assumed that was committing the crime. That was the probable cause was him.
So you assumed he was the one committing the crime.
Yes.
All right, so you'd agree that as law enforcement, when you were there in the military as a boarding officer, that even if you know a crime is committed, when you have several suspects, you can't just go and arrest the first suspect. You have to actually have evidence that that person is the one who committed that crime, correct?
That's correct. And I believe I had it with the videos that I've seen with him, with Mr. Arbery being the one that has been there multiple times, and then what I witnessed on the 11th with him sneaking through those yards, or through that yard, and then the way that he reacted to me when I put the lights on him, reacted like he was going for a gun, and then went into that house after we had our altercation, and then Mr. Albenze being there that same evening and verified that that on the video is the same guy that he's seen, and then seeing Mr. Albenze pointing down the road, led to probable cause, and then Dad saying that that was the same individual, the probable cause that it is the same guy that has been in that house that has been breaking into and stuff has been stolen. So the overall, the totality of everything led me to go down there and see if that was him.
So the totality of all of that led you to go see if that was him,
Yes,
meaning the guy you'd seen on the 11th.
correct.
All right, so you used the word totality of the circumstances a whole bunch here, haven't you?
Yes, I guess. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let's go ahead and back up for a second. You had your gun stolen, correct?
I did.
On January 1st, 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had a suspect in mind for that theft of that gun, correct?
Yes, when I got the videos from Ms. Perez, Diego, looking through, there was a truck that came through that I haven't seen in the neighborhood before. And after looking at the truck, I thought that it might have been some teenagers that I would see on that part of the county. And it turned out that it was a neighbor on the other side, and then that was as far as I went with that.
Who's David Sorrells?
I have no idea.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
He's not a Facebook friend of yours?
Not that I believe.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if you looked at some of your Facebook posts that you shared with Mr. Sorrells?
Absolutely.
All right, go ahead and take a look at this.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we're still here. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a look at the yellow highlighted part.
Yeah, I recognize it.
All right, do you know who David Sorrells is?
I do not.
All right.
He must have been on the neighborhood page. I do remember the message now, and I believe he must saw it on the neighborhood Facebook page.
All right, so on January 1st, he says he's sorry about your gun being stolen out of your car. Is that right?
Yes, that's what he wrote.
All right, and then you indicated that you had a pretty good feeling about who stole it,
Yes, ma'am.
and you found out where he lived. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you'd been watching him for several days.
Yes.
That was not Mr. Arbery.
No, that was the truck I was telling you about.
Okay. And you then indicated that this may be the same individual who has been causing trouble in the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But that's not Mr. Arbery.
No, ma'am.
So why, in your written statement, 2 hours after the homicide, do you put down the very first sentence? On January 1st of 2020, approximately between 9 and 10:30, I had my vehicle broken into and my Smith & Wesson gun stolen out of my truck.
Because I was aware of things of burglaries and vehicles being broken into the neighborhood, and then on top of seeing what I saw on the 11th, that there are things being broken into. I was under concern that Mr. Arbery could be a suspect in this, or he could not be. But like I said prior, he is the one that I have seen, and he is the one that has been in that house several times. So of course I'm thinking he's a suspect. But I don't know if it was him or the other people that they've seen or if I've heard about.
So, given you don't know who stole your gun, there was no probable cause to arrest Mr. Arbery for the theft of your handgun on January 1st, 2020.
No, ma'am.
You also didn't know who had stolen the items out of the boat, Mr. Larry English's boat, did you?
No, but I had a probability. I was thinking that the probability of who was doing that was the one that continued to go into this house, that has been caught in this house several times, which was Mr. Arbery.
But you had no evidence he'd ever taken anything off of Mr. English's boat.
Other than that, there's been stuff stolen out of that house, and that he has been in that house several times.
So you have stolen items on boat, and you got that from your mom,
Yes.
and then you got him inside the construction site, right? Inside 220.
Yes, ma'am.
And at the point in time on February 23rd, you knew about October 25th,
Yes.
November 18th,
Yes.
and February 11th.
Yes.
You also knew that the white couple had gone in on November 17th, right?
I did.
You also knew that there was a shady-looking guy under the bridge, correct?
I did.
And you also suspected this guy in the neighborhood with the truck may have been the one who stole your handgun. He might have also been someone who was stealing things in the neighborhood, as you said to Mr. Sorrells, right?
And for a couple of days, they decided that was not him, or was not the person that had the truck. That I thought it was a different truck. So I let no, that's not.
Is that Rob Way?
I don't know who Rob Way is.
So Kim Ballesteros didn't tell you that she suspected Rob Way in the neighborhood as being the one who stole her purse out of her car January 30th?
Not that I recall. No, ma'am.
And you're telling this jury that your mother never told you that Larry English suspected his contractors?
No, ma'am.
All right, so about February 11th, I want to make sure yesterday, when you testified, did you testify that Mr. Arbery actually came toward you and started lifting up his shirt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you never said that before to anyone, did you?
I put it in the statement.
The statement, your handwritten statement?
The written statement, I believe I did.
Can I hand you a copy of your handwritten statement?
Sorry, that mark you did it.
I was incorrect. I said I reached into his pants on the written statement.
Right, so in your statement, you indicated that I was getting out of my car to ask him what he was doing.
This is a written statement?
Correct.
Okay.
And he turned toward my vehicle and reached into his pants, which led me to think that he may have a weapon.
Yes, ma'am.
Reached like that to his pants?
No. That's,
And then you indicated I immediately put my car in reverse and the individual went into the house under construction, correct?
yes, ma'am.
And that was, oh. All right, can everybody see now? Okay. And that was the publishing of State's Exhibit 120, the video clip entitled Video MP4. Is that your car pulling down?
It is, yes, ma'am. Now right here, Mr. Arbery have anything in his hands? Not I could see, no, ma'am.
Have a backpack with him?
He did not.
Any sort of bag with him?
Not at that time, no, ma'am.
No. He's wearing a big long t-shirt, isn't he?
Yes.
And shorts cut off at the knees.
I think they were cargo shorts, but yes.
And he's got running shoes on.
I can't tell.
Do you see the Nike logo swoosh in the reflection?
No, ma'am.
I'll back it up for you. See it then?
No, ma'am.
That was State's Exhibit 117 that I just published. Now, that particular evening, you've seen the body cam video of Officer Rash, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Officer Rash told you and told your father that Larry English said Mr. Arbery had never taken or stolen anything from the open unsecured construction site. Is that correct?
My understanding was never saw him take anything from there. Yes, ma'am. Never saw anything taken.
Okay. And Larry English actually had never had anything stolen from the open unsecured construction site.
Yes, he had stuff stolen out of his boat that was inside that house. Yes, ma'am.
But you didn't investigate that crime as a law enforcement officer, correct?
No, ma'am.
Because you weren't a law enforcement officer, were you?
That's correct.
All right. And your father wasn't a law enforcement officer either.
He was not.
Okay. So you're basing your probable cause on something that was rumor that your mother told you about things being stolen off the boat.
I was basing it on the 11th for seeing him in there again and hearing that the stuff was stolen off of that boat, and then hearing it from the other neighbors and then from seeing on the 11th. So yes, it happened, and then seeing him come in multiple times, and then everything that followed up on the 23rd. Yes, that's.
You were here when Officer Rash testified, is that right?
I was.
Okay, and you heard Officer Rash, under cross-examination, answer the defense attorney's question about if Mr. Larry English had filed a police report about items stolen off of his boat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he said the officer assigned would have investigated it, right?
Yes.
All right. And that means interviewing Larry English, correct?
Yes.
And so an officer who's investigating the theft of items off the boat would have found out from Larry English that the boat had been moved back and forth to Douglas, correct?
Objection, speculation. She's asking him about to assume what Officer Rash would have done had he been asked to make a report about thefts by Larry English, and then how he would follow up on that. This is all speculation on the witness's part.
Speculating as to what Rash would have done, that's sustained.
I'll ask a better question, Your Honor. On cross-examination, do you remember Officer Rash testifying that the officer assigned, if Mr. English had filed a report, would have investigated that?
Yes.
Okay, and that Officer Rash, you heard him testify that that would have included interviewing Larry English, correct?
Yes.
All right, and you heard Larry English testify that the boat had been moved back and forth between Douglas, correct?
He learned that, yes.
Well, he didn't learn that, he knew it. He'd moved the boat back and forth, right?
You talking about Rash or
Relevance
English?
is, I object. I'm not sure what the relevance is about asking him what he heard people testify in court that he didn't know with his own personal knowledge on particular dates. Hearing what people later come and testify about in court is asking him to comment on the testimony before the jury. It doesn't seem to be a relevant inquiry. What he did and what he knew at those particular times, I think, surely. But what they testify about in court and how that may change his thoughts about dates in the past doesn't appear to be relevant.
It's overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. And you heard Larry English testify that he suspected his subcontractors? Yes?
That,
That Larry English suspected his subcontractors of having stolen the items off of his boat. You heard him testify to that?
here, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you heard him testify that he told that to Officer Rash?
Yes.
And you heard Officer Rash testify that he told that to your father?
Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what was happening on February 23rd, 2020. All right, so you personally first saw Ahmaud Arbery as he was running ahead of you on Burford.
That's correct.
Okay, and you were driving behind him in the white F-150 pickup truck.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And at that time, when you first saw him, he didn't have a bag, did he?
No, ma'am.
Didn't have a backpack.
He did not.
Wasn't carrying a box.
Was it?
Okay. And you could see his hands as he ran.
Yes.
Okay. And you could see that he was wearing the cargo shorts and the t-shirt.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you didn't know who he was. I mean, you didn't know him personally.
I didn't know him personally. No, ma'am.
Okay. You didn't know his name.
No, ma'am.
All right. Didn't know anything about him.
Nothing.
He didn't know you.
Not that I'm aware of.
You just knew that he was the guy who was on video at the open unsecured construction site.
And that I saw on the 11th.
And at this point in time, when you first see him on Burford, he's not reaching into his pockets.
No, ma'am. Not running. No, ma'am.
And he never yelled at you guys,
No, ma'am.
never threatened you at all,
No, ma'am. Not
never
ver-
brandished any weapons.
Sorry, Your Honor, he's trying to finish his answer.
Yeah, he did not threaten me verbally. No, ma'am.
All right. Didn't brandish any weapons.
No, ma'am.
Didn't pull out any guns.
No, ma'am.
Didn't pull out any knife.
No, ma'am.
Never reached for anything, did he?
No.
He just ran.
Yes, he was just running.
So at this point in time, you catch up to him on Burford by pulling up next to him. Is that right?
Yes, pulling alongside, keeping with my window right there. I did.
So as he's running down the street, okay, let's say this is the street, he's on this side of the road, consistent with someone driving forward, or is he on that side of the road looking at oncoming traffic?
Oncoming traffic.
Okay, so he's
Yes.
on the side for oncoming traffic.
That's correct.
All right, so you pull up next to him. Is that right?
Yes.
You startled him.
No.
Are you a mind reader?
I'm not, but I could see his actions, the way that he didn't veer, he didn't run off. I came up to him slowly, just like I would anybody else, and I've never startled anybody doing that before, anybody walking or jogging or running. I've never had anybody become startled on that, so I
How
don't know why
many-
would we.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. How many times have you pulled up on strangers that you don't know next to them with a pickup truck to ask them what they're doing in your neighborhood?
I don't think I have in that situation, but I have pulled up on people that are running behind, coming up behind them. But I mean, if you could be startled from somebody coming up behind you, is one thing or the other. You can tell if somebody is, but I didn't startle him. I didn't come up on him hard or fast or blowing the horn or anything. I just pulled alongside him on my side of the road, right at the yellow line, and once he acknowledged me and saw that I was there, is when I came a little closer and stayed with him.
So he's running, you pull up, he looks at you, and you say to him, what?
I say, hey, what's going on? Hold on a second.
All right. And he didn't say anything back to you?
No, ma'am.
All right. He just kept running?
He stopped and turned and went backwards. That was the first time. That was the one caught on Mr. Roddy's or Mr. Brian's video. Was turned out to be the first altercation.
Okay, so hold on. You pull up next to him, he stops, and then he turns and starts running this way. Back down Burford towards Satilla.
Yes,
And then you back up. Is that right?
I did.
So you back up the truck to follow him, and at some point in time, what do you say to him at that point?
I'm asking him, what are you doing? You know, what's going on? What happened down there? Why is there some? You know, I ask him why there's somebody pointing down the road. As I'm talking, that's when he turns and runs back down Burford.
So now you're asking him, hey, why is somebody pointing down the road? That's what you're asking him?
That's what I was trying to get to ask him why there's people pointing down the road.
All right, Mr. McMichael. Not asking for generalities and what's in your head. I want to know exactly what you were saying to the man jogging down the street. Do you understand?
Yes,
Okay. What exactly did you say to him the first time you pulled up to him?
I want to talk to you.
And he turned and ran.
He stopped, turned, and then went the other direction.
Okay. And that was an indication to you that he didn't want to talk to you.
Yes.
That was an indication he was not going to stop for you.
Yes.
Okay. And at that point in time, you chose to put your truck in reverse and back up at him.
Back up along with him.
So he's trying to get away from you, doesn't want to stop, doesn't want to talk, and you're backing up to go along with him.
That's correct.
And at some point in time then, he turns to run up Burford, right?
Yes, I've asked him again, or asked him that I wanted to talk to him. I don't know exactly what I said, but it was to the effect that I want to talk to him and what happened down the road.
And at this point in time, you're not wearing any sort of uniform.
No, ma'am,
You're not in a marked patrol car.
I'm not.
You don't have any badges on your sleeves.
I do not.
And when you told the police, you were talking to them about make sure I get this right. Do you remember telling the police? So I pull up to him and say, hey, you know what's going on. He's running. He won't stop. I said, that's him. Stop right there. I'm at the bottom of page 8, top of page 9. Stop right there. Stop where you're at. Do you remember telling the police that that's what you said?
That's what's on here, yes ma'am. You want me to read it?
I'm just asking you if that's what you said. You said, what's going on? He won't stop. I said, that's him. Stop right there. Stop where you're at.
Yeah, that's part of it.
All right. So at this point, you're ordering him to stop. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say ordering. I was asking him.
Like nicely and politely, please, sir, stop?
At first, it was not police or sir, but hey, could you stop? Please, yes, stop for a second. Stop for a second. My voice inflection and tone, I was trying to keep the situation calm.
And this is at the time that he's already decided that he doesn't want anything to do with you and has run back down Burford towards Satilla.
Yes.
All right. And then we see what happens in the Night Owl video. Is that right? Is that what happens next?
Brian, yes. Yes, around that time.
To find it. Let's see. What's my evidence number? Hello? Okay, I need to know what the evidence number is, because I can't find the Night Owl video on the thing. I know it's there. Okay. I apologize, Your Honor, something's not right, and I'm worried I've missed it, or somehow it is not on the file anymore.
Your Honor, we have no objections to state would like a recess.
Thank you. Let's make sure it's on there. There we go. So publishing States Exhibit 194, the first video ending in 261. Is this what we have?
Yes.
You're backing up, and then he's running away from you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, is this your truck pulling forward after him?
It is. Yes, ma'am.
So at this point in time, you could have just stopped, right?
I could have.
You could have just let him run, correct?
I could have, but I also wanted to make sure that everything was okay down the road and see what was happening. I wanted to ask him, at least ask him what was happening and see what he would say and go from there.
Despite the fact that you know about the Fifth Amendment, you know that no one has to talk to anyone they don't want to talk to, right?
That's correct.
And you said that you wanted to know what had happened and that you saw Matt Albenzi out in the street when you came out with your shotgun from your house, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't go down and ask Mr. Albenzi what was going on, did you?
I did not.
Okay. So at one point in time, I think you said you thought, well, maybe somebody had been hurt or something had been broken into, or maybe Larry English was down there, right?
That's correct.
All right. But you didn't head that way to see what exactly had happened, did you?
I did not, because Mr. Albenzi was pointing down the road. I took it as whatever happened, you need to go that way. You need to go that way. Something has happened. And then trying to ask him was to see what was happening. What happened?
Because something had happened.
Something has happened.
All right, so at this point, right here, where he's running, you're still yelling at him, stop, I want to talk to you, stop.
No, ma'am. Once I watched him run and then pull onside him again is when I engaged with him again.
All right, so we're talking about going all the way down Burford.
No, ma'am. It was only another 100 feet from there, maybe 200 feet. There was a wooded area right where I spoke to him again.
All right, so let's take a look at this,
May I?
which I want to make sure we have
Yes,
the
ma'am.
right exhibit number, Judge. So what we're looking at here on the blown up board is going to be State's Exhibit 300. So taking a look at the blown up board of State's Exhibit 300,
So are you asking him to take a look at it?
I'm going to go ahead and publish it up there so that we can go ahead and see it, but that's what the blown up board is.
Okay.
Are you able to see that on your screen?
Yes, ma'am.
So, got the Bryan house. You said you went down here to maybe a wooded area. Is it fair to say that that wooded area is right in here?
Yes, it's right at the corner of that house or lot right there. The last open area.
Right here.
No, ma'am. Right
Right
there.
here?
Yes.
All right. And so you chase him down here, and at this point in time, you cut him off.
No, ma'am. I'm alongside him and ask him to stop. I want to talk to him. And then after I asked him, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. Hey, hold on a second. Is when he finally stopped, and I was like, okay, now we can talk. We can see what's going on. And then as soon as I said, the cops are coming, after he didn't respond to me or talk to me, and I said, hey, the police are coming, stay right here. That's when he turned and ran the other direction.
You'd agree with me when I say that you never, ever told the Glenn County Police Department or in your written statement that you said to Mr. Arbery, the police are coming.
I don't know if I did or not. If it's not on there, then I didn't say it, but I could have missed it from everything that was happening and writing it down. 2 hours later, I might have missed it, but on the assumption that they do that, because I was still under the impression that my dad has called the police, so I'm under the impression that the cops are coming.
So talking about that, I'm going to have you take a look at page number 9. Again, that last paragraph. So, in your statement to Detective Nohilly, only a couple hours after the homicide of Ahmaud Arbery, you basically say he goes around the corner, comes back, he's, man, something's not right here. I tell him to stop, grab the gun out of the truck. I say, hey, stop, stop, stop. He runs back. Man, this, you call 911 yet? Find my phone, call, give it to my dad, said, call the cops, let's get the cops. So it's only after you grabbed your shotgun out of the truck at the corner of Holmes and Satilla that you say, hey, let's call the cops, and you hand the phone to your dad to call the cops.
That's when I found out that he did not call the police. When I realized that he has not called the police. And then
So also on page 9, you never indicated that Mr. Arbery actually stopped long enough for you to have a conversation with him. Is that correct at the top of page 9?
Yes, I do. I said, he's running, he won't stop. I said, that's him. Stop right there. Stop where you're at. Call the cops, And I'm assuming, or what I'm saying there is, I told him that I called the cops. There he is. He starts acting funny, and then he takes off running. So he was stopped. If he takes off running, then he was stopped at the point.
Do you remember yesterday telling this jury that that's what you said to your dad? Call the cops, there he is? Do you remember telling this jury just yesterday that was what you said to your dad? Call the cops, there he is. He starts acting funny, he takes off running.
I believe I said, have you called the cops yet? And then on this here is what I mentioned to the police in the interview. And reading this and knowing how I was all over the place when I was giving that statement, this is what I was talking about. This is what I believe was what I was talking about.
But you'd agree, nowhere in here do you say that Mr. Arbery actually stopped. You said, stop right there, stop right where you're at, and he takes off running.
He takes off running.
Mm-hmm. So nowhere in here do you indicate to Detective Nohilly that he stopped long enough for you to say, the police are on their way, and that's why he took off running. Nowhere in here and nowhere in your written statement is that indicated.
In those terms, saying it in that verbatim, I did not. But looking at this and how I was still under stress, still under the impact of what happened a couple hours after this, just 2 hours after the shooting, and then seeing how I was after this, just 2 hours after the shooting, and then seeing how I was talking, under stress, nervous, scared. I know what I was talking about here, and that's what I was talking about. Call the cops, Stop where you're at, call the cops. I'm probably choppy trying to talk to him, being nervous, and saying that I was saying this to Mr. Arbery, and then he takes off running. If you're running, he continued running. He takes off running. I think that's what I was talking about there.
So what were you nervous about while giving this statement?
I just killed a man. I had blood on me still. It was the most traumatic event of my life. I was scared to death. I mean, it was the most traumatic event of my life. I don't know anybody who wouldn't be scared or stressed or terrified or anything. I mean, it was horrible.
I'm talking about giving your statement 2 hours later at a police station. You were nervous because you thought you were going to jail, right?
No. I gave him a statement. I mean, if I would have, I
somebody
would.
you don't think you're going to jail. Is what you're saying.
I was going through an investigation. I was following the investigation.
So, you saw Officer Duggan's body cam, correct? Officer Duggan, the first officer who testified, his body cam.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You were standing right behind Officer Duggan while all that went on, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, you've just shot Mr. Arbery 3 times with a shotgun, correct?
Correct.
He's dead on the scene, correct?
Correct.
He's unarmed, correct?
He was.
All right. And your father came up to you and grabbed you by the shoulders and went, you had no choice, you had no choice, right? You saw that?
Yes.
All right. You're covered in Mr. Arbery's blood. You go down to the police station, correct?
Correct.
All right.
keep going.
Okay. And at that point, you're in the safety of the police department giving your statement, correct?
Yes.
All right. You've got all the time in the world, correct?
Yes.
All right. And Detective Nohilly hasn't threatened you,
No,
hasn't forced you to make a statement,
he did not.
okay, and didn't promise you anything in order to get you to make the statement.
I'm going to look real quick. He did not.
Okay. But you're telling this jury that you're all confused and you can't get the facts straight as you're telling the police about why it was you shot and killed a man.
I was trying with my best ability, but like I said, under the circumstances of going through a traumatic event, this is the most traumatic event that I have ever been through in my life. I don't know how. I've never been through a situation like that, so the reaction, trying to go through and trying to be as factual and tell as detailed as I could, and then looking through the transcript and being as scattered as it was, I could tell that obviously I failed attempting to try as best I could. This is what you got. I tried, and this is what happened.
So, fair to say you never told Detective Nohilly nor wrote down in your written statement that you told Mr. Arbery the police were on their way.
It seems that I attempted to say it in these words here.
And at that point, Mr. Arbery turns around and runs back down Burford to get away from you, correct?
That's correct.
So at this point in time, he's running away from you. He has not threatened you,
No.
hasn't pulled out a gun,
No, ma'am.
hasn't pulled out a knife,
He did not.
still arms at his sides,
That's correct.
and he's trying to get away from you.
And I was letting him run away. Yes, ma'am.
You were letting him run away.
That's correct.
Wasn't it your intention to go around the block and cut him off and find him over on the other side?
To head him off and to see where he's located, that was my intention. Yes, ma'am.
All right. But you could have stopped right there and not done anything, right?
Yes, but then immediately after is when I saw his interaction with the black truck and realized that there is something to my suspicions here, and I would like to see where he is at when the cops come, which I assume that the police were on the way, that I would be able to tell them where he's at if they haven't located him at that point.
So you're telling this jury that your whole intention was just to go ahead and follow Mr. Arbery, keep an eye on him, and to just tell the cops there he is.
At that point, yes, ma'am.
Now, it's true that your father, while in the truck with you, going down Burford towards that end, was yelling at you, cut him off, cut him off, cut him off, right?
He was talking to me or was telling me, I don't know if he was saying cut him off or not. I know that he was saying there he is, that's the guy. After that, I am not sure exactly what he said.
At this point, you're still yelling at Mr. Arbery to stop at the end of Burford.
I was not yelling at him on Burford, no ma'am.
And at the end of Burford, you and your dad both got out of the pickup truck, correct?
When he turned and started running down Burford, when he was away, when he was not a threat, if he wanted to be a threat and he was going past that, yeah, I got out of the truck, yes ma'am. When he turned and running away is when I got out of the vehicle.
Why in the world would Mr. Arbery be a threat to you?
Because of when I asked him what was going on and recognized that it was the guy that I saw on the 11th, and Mr. Albenzi pointing and everything going down, and realized that it is him, and then how he reacted when I shined the lights on him on the 11th. He acted like he did not want to be. He was obviously caught sneaking through the front yard. he was obviously where he wasn't supposed to be, where he hasn't been several times, and then he reaches into his pants, I think he has a gun, then that, I took that as a threatening gesture and walked in the house. Now it's the same guy on the 23rd that I've just pulled up to that turned out my father was correct. People pointing down the road, the same scene that this happened 12 days prior, that yes, there was a possibility that he may be armed with that gesture, but he didn't show me that, and he started running down the road. I was no longer under a threat if there was to be one, so I got out of the vehicle after my father got out of the vehicle to see what was going on and watch him.
So when you first pulled up to him, very first time, you confirmed it was him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You testified under oath to this jury that I'm not going to chase or investigate someone who is armed, right?
That's correct.
And yet you want this jury to believe now that he was a threat to you, okay, and that you perceived him as a threat, yet you continued to chase him down Burford.
I didn't know if he was a threat or not. He never reached in his pockets, and I wanted to see what was happening. I figured I could talk to him at this point, or getting up to him on the second point.
But hadn't at this point he demonstrated not once, not twice, but 3 times he did not want to talk to you?
Which when I'm at the stop, when I stopped at Burford.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you pulled up to him once, he doesn't want to talk to you. You back up, he doesn't want to talk to you. You pull down Burford, your dad's yelling, cut him off, cut him off. And all of a sudden, he runs back, he doesn't want to talk to you. That's 3 times he's demonstrated to you that he does not want to talk to you, correct?
Yes.
He's also demonstrated he's no threat to you. He hasn't pulled out a gun.
That's correct.
He hasn't said one word to you.
He has not.
He's not threatened you in any way, verbally or physically.
No, ma'am.
No knives.
No knives.
All right. He's not swearing at you, using profanity or anything like that, is he?
Didn't talk.
So at this point, you get out of the truck, correct?
That's correct.
And you get out with your shotgun.
No, I got out when my father got out to get in the back, and then my shotgun slipped and was in the floorboard where my feet were all over it. Once I'm out of the vehicle, it was safe to, I'm not going to reach it. I wasn't going to grab it while Mr. Arbery was right there. There was no reason for it. He's run off. I'm on the side of the truck, so at that point, I grabbed the shotgun out of the floorboard and put it back on the seat.
Your dad gets out with his .357 Magnum, correct?
I didn't know if he had it on him or not. I knew he had it, but I didn't see it. He didn't have it in his hand.
So he didn't have it in his hand as he ran about 10 yards down the road after Mr. Arbery.
He didn't run down the road after Mr. Arbery.
So at this point, you see Mr. Bryan pull out in his black GMC truck to try and run Mr. Arbery off the road.
No, ma'am. I saw, after I put the shotgun back onto the seat when it was on the floorboard, and then watching Dad or talking to Dad or trying to figure out what's going on, and I looked back down the road. I don't know Mr. Bryan. I didn't know where he lived. I didn't see him when I had the first encounter with Mr. Arbery. My assumption, I was assuming from what I saw, that he came from Satilla. So the vehicle was at what I thought was the very end of the road. More than likely seeing the video the other day where the tree was closest to Burford. It was towards the end where it was almost on the road. I'm certain that's where I saw the encounter with them. And it didn't look like he was running them off the road. It actually looked like Mr. Arbery, I thought the vehicle was stopped, and looked like Arbery went to the left side and then to the right and then went back to the left. It looked like he was engaging with that vehicle.
So you're all the way down here. I'll do it on this one. All the way down here.
Around there, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And they're all the way down here by the time you look at them. Is that what you're saying?
By the time I noticed it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you want this jury to believe that you thought Mr. Arbery was the one engaging in this black vehicle, not that the black vehicle was trying to hit him or run him off the road.
I'm going to object to the form of the question you want this jury to believe. I think that's an improper form of the question. I think you can ask him questions and he can answer, but to insinuate that he has some motive for the jury to believe is improper.
It's cross-examination. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you want this jury to believe that it's Mr. Arbery who's the aggressor with the black truck, not that the black truck's the one trying to run him off the road to help you.
I didn't see the truck trying to run him off the road. What I saw from down there, what I saw was the vehicle looked to be at a stop, and Mr. Arbery was engaging the vehicle.
And then Mr. Arbery was able to get away from the black vehicle.
He ran past the vehicle.
And your dad wanted to go down there to see what was happening, right?
That's correct.
But you wanted to go around to cut him off.
No, ma'am. I wanted to get around and to see where he was at, not to cut him off. Not the way you're saying cut him off. No, I wanted to see where he was at, to be in that same area to let the police know where he was coming.
I'm going to have you take a look at page 24, middle of the page. I'm sorry, back up to page 23, please. All right. Take a look at page 23. So, line 16. So he turned and went back down this road. Dad's like, hey, go down there. I said, I'm not going through that. I'm not going back to him. And this is about the time that the black truck that was at the scene, that's when he tried to stop it.
Yes.
All right. So here you're telling the police the black truck at the scene was trying to stop Mr. Arbery.
That's what I was believing, yes.
Okay. And that was right here in this corner, just on Burford, probably a house past this intersection. So I turned and went this way.
Correct.
All right. And then he came around, came down Holmes Drive. He was right there. I said, good. We'll have a chance to stop him now. Correct?
Yes.
All right. And then the black truck's right there. I was over here. Hey, stop, stop. Well, he's running up the road, and I seen him coming. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you came around Holmes, and you were a few houses down when you encountered Mr. Arbery and yelled at him once again, stop, stop. Is that right?
I think I had it wrong on here. Like I said, once I was bouncing back and forth, trying to explain everything that happened, that I misspoke on there. I don't know where I would say to stop, stop. Where was it that I said stop? Came around, came down Holmes Drive. He was right there. I said, good, we'll have a chance to stop him now. Black truck's right there. I was over here. Hey, stop, stop. Well, he was running down the road. I seen him coming. So, yeah, that was at the end of Holmes, right on the other side of the dog leg.
All right. Well, do you notice how it says, the investigator O'Hilly right after that says, which way is he running? And you said he's coming up this way. And where are you at this time? I came around and turned off this road. I'm not really sure how far I was. I was a few houses down. So you're a few houses down. He's asking you specifically, when did you say, hey, stop, stop? I was a few houses down, correct?
Yeah, on here, that's correct.
Okay. And you also got out of your truck at that time, a few houses down on Holmes Drive, correct?
On here is what I said, but I don't believe that's what happened. I believe I misspoke or had it wrong or had it mixed up to when I stopped at the end of Holmes.
Okay. But you also wrote it down in your written statement.
Which part?
Take a look at your written statement. It's about 2/3 of the way down.
On page
2. So I decided to continue down Burford towards Zellwood, then take on to Holmes to see if he would be there. Is that right? You see that line?
Yes.
Okay. And then it said, then you wrote, I made it halfway down and seen the individual turn and run back the way he came, then turn back toward me when the black GMC Chevy turned onto the road.
That's correct. That was at the end of Satilla.
Well, you said I got
Correct.
out of my truck and told him to stop, which he didn't. I got back into my truck and stopped just short of the stop sign on Holmes facing Satilla. So you had actually stopped, gotten out of your truck, told him to stop, which he didn't, then got back in your truck, then pulled down to Satilla and Holmes.
That, looking back after everything cooled off, where I stopped, and I don't recall if I got out or not. I think I had this mixed with when I finally pulled up. Both times where I said I stopped and got out, I was saying when I stopped and saw Mr. Arbery and the black truck coming at me. We were on Holmes, just short of where the shooting occurred. I probably yelled stop at him, but then once they passed me is when I pulled up a couple more feet and decided to stay where I was at. That's what I was speaking about here.
Isn't it true that at this point in time, when you're a few houses down Holmes, you stop, you get out, you yelled at him, stop, stop. That's when your father yelled at him, stop, or I'll blow your fucking head off?
I don't think so, Emil.
All right, well, you don't think so? I mean, you were standing right there. You heard your father say this, yes?
I don't think I heard him say that, Emil.
But you know that's what he told the police he said.
In here in court is what I heard. Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, you're coming down Holmes, and you see Mr. Arbery coming toward you.
He was in the middle of a turn. He was on the right side of the road, turning left in that apex is when I saw him there. The first time I saw him on Holmes. He was in the middle of a turn, turning back towards Satilla on Holmes.
Is that what the video picks up?
I don't think so, no ma'am.
So you're saying that you're coming down this way, and he's running toward your truck, he's turning around, and he runs back this way. You don't see the black truck at this point?
No ma'am.
All right. But then all of a sudden he's running back toward you, and you see the black truck behind him?
No, when I came around the dogleg, the black truck and Mr. Arbery were together. The black truck obviously just came off of Satilla and were heading towards me on Holmes, towards Elwood.
So you're saying at this point you've made it all the way down here?
He was turning, he was on the right side of the road turning left. When I saw him, he was in the middle of the turn, and then he turned and was out of sight around that dogleg, and I continued, and then once I got to the dogleg is when I saw him and Mr. Arbery, or the black vehicle, coming my way.
And at that point he's pinned between the two vehicles.
He was.
You get down to the end of here, having passed Mr. Arbery and the black truck.
No, I was at a stop and they passed me. I let Mr. Arbery run by and I let the vehicle pass me. I was stopped in the correct lane and saw them coming, and that was when Mr. Arbery and the black truck were, Mr. Arbery was running alongside the truck, grabbing at the mirror and the door, and then that's when they split. When they were coming into my lane, that's when they split. Mr. Arbery was on the passenger side, and the black vehicle turned and went back into his lane and then was following Mr. Arbery as they went around that dogleg.
In order for you to get from here to here with them behind you, you had to have passed Mr. Arbery and the black pickup truck, correct?
That's when they passed me, was back there, was towards Tillo. Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor will consider a restroom break.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a mid-morning recess. We'll take a 15-minute recess and then continue with the evidence in the case. Thank you.
All right for the jury. Please be seated.
All right. Excuse me, sir. You can go ahead and step down. We'll take a 15-minute recess. Quarter of. Thank you.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
The fire has grown leaps and bounds. What you see behind me is typical. How you doing?
Pretty bad.
Whoop, whoop. Netflix may have helped change the way we watch TV and movies, but they will soon feature a show set in an old-fashioned but
seat, please.
All right. Defendant's present, represented by counsel. I've got a lot of people standing.
I have, before we resume, Judge, we're noticing that juror number 12 is continuing to nod off. And we would at this point move to excuse her. We don't think it's appropriate for a jury to sleep through both the direct and the cross-examinations, and we're very concerned that she's missing some portion of evidence. And it's important to both sides that she listened to everything. And so we would move to excuse her and place an alternate in her place.
Mr. Hope.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to compare our, yes, to make sure I knew exactly where we were. Yes, we would join in that. But what we have, I don't have as good of a vantage point as, for where we're sitting to see the jury most of the time. But based on what the court has reported and what our defendant's counsel has reported, I want an attentive juror.
I think, although obviously I probably have the poorest vantage point in the courtroom, particularly this morning with the easel. I'm not complaining, but I would feel constrained to join in that motion. That's why we have alternates.
State objects. I've been up here cross-examining Mr. McMichael and turning and looking at the jurors. I have not noticed any one of them not paying attention at all. They seem to be paying very, very close attention to this testimony.
Yeah, and I've been watching 12. You know, I will say there are moments where she appears tired. She has not slept through the evidence that I have been able to notice. It was brought to my attention yesterday. She was moved. There were no issues yesterday afternoon. I'm going to keep an eye on her this morning and just get some idea of what, if any, consistency there is with what's happening. Based on that, the court will make some decisions on whether to inquire with her, whether she's missed any evidence, and move from there. But at this point, I'm not going to take the step of striking her, as the court will effectively take the matter under advisement. I'm going to continue to watch the juror. Obviously, if there is, if it goes beyond where it is now with her, I'll take appropriate measures, and if I need to follow up further at the end of this morning, I'll do so. Mr. Goff.
We'd also like the record to know two things before we start back up. After the examination of the witness began or continued, my understanding is the Right Reverend Jesse Jackson has again been in court. I think he's back there in the dark shirt. Putting that on the record, not going to re-argue anything. And I would also note that there is or was an individual walking about in the foyer outside the courtroom earlier today with a black sweatshirt saying, "I support black pastors." And given that the black pastors support the conviction of our client, we would object to those kinds of slogans being outside in the foyer where witnesses are sitting. It is not just an issue with the jurors who may or may not see them as they come in and out of the courtroom, but now we have witnesses being exposed to all this. And again, you know, it raises questions. I've noted it for the record. The court can decide with it what it will.
It's all noted for the record then. I can't speak to whatever may be happening outside the courtroom. There are procedures that the court is aware of that are in place, and something's brought to my attention that is deviating from those procedures, then I'll go ahead and address that. I will note that Reverend Jackson is in the courtroom. Beyond that, anything from the state before we proceed with the witness?
No, Judge.
From Travis McMichael.
No, Your Honor.
Greg McMichael. And Mr. Brown.
No, Your Honor.
Witness is seated. Remind you that you're under oath.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go get the panel.
All right, so jury. Please sit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to proceed with the evidence of the case from the state.
Thank you. So, Mr. McMichael, you've seen this video numerous times in court, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And at this point in time, you can see that Mr. Arbery is well out in front of Mr. Bryan, who's videotaping this, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And you're telling this jury that at this point in time, both your truck is behind Mr. Arbery and Mr. Bryan's truck is behind Mr. Arbery.
That is correct.
And so he turns around and runs back toward your truck and Mr. Bryan's truck.
From the video, yes.
Isn't it true that the reason he turned around is he saw your truck coming at him down Holmes? Isn't it true that the reason he turned around is he saw your truck coming at him down Holmes?
From that video there, I don't believe so, no, ma'am.
And isn't it true that you're coming back down Holmes and he sees the front of your truck, so he turns around and that you pass him as he's passing Mr. Bryan?
No, ma'am.
So, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, Ahmaud Arbery, who could have kept running up Holmes to get away from both of these pickup trucks that have been chasing him, turns back around to go back towards both the pickup trucks.
Objection, speculation, Your Honor. The reason that he turns is a speculation. Sorry. The reason, she's asking you to speculate as to the reason he turns.
If you can rephrase it.
Sure thing.
Your Honor, I'm asking for the court to either sustain or...
It's sustained. She can rephrase it.
Thank you, Judge.
point out the witnesses on the cross. So the court is permitting her to ask open-ended questions, just like the defense would be permitted to ask open-ended, and was permitted to ask open-ended questions on cross. Ms. Tadakowski.
Thank you. So, when you assert that your truck is behind Mr. Arbery, and we know Mr. Bryan's truck is behind Mr. Arbery, has the opportunity now to run up Holmes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And yet, on the video, we see him turn around. Is that correct?
That's correct.
To run back toward the black pickup truck that had already tried to hit him 4 times. Is that correct?
I didn't see him try to run him over.
Did you hear Mr. Bryan's statements in open court while you were sitting here?
I did.
All right. And you know he told the police that on 4 separate occasions he tried to hit Mr. Arbery. You know that.
Relevance, Your Honor.
That's sustained. You
All right.
rephrase that.
I'll rephrase that. Did you hear the officers testify to what Mr. Bryan had said?
I heard the officers testify to that, yes.
All right. And you heard that Mr. Bryan told the police that Mr. Arbery tried to get into his truck or grab his handle or whatever that was on Burford.
On Burford, yes.
All right. And so, at this point, you're telling this jury, I just want to make sure that the turning around, you don't know why Mr. Arbery turned around, is what you're telling this jury.
I don't know why.
Okay. But when he turned around, you're contending he's now running back towards both your truck and Mr. Bryan's truck.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to ask you about this whole thing about on Holmes, Mr. Arbery is trying to attack a truck, is what you said yesterday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You never told anyone that in any of your statements, did you?
I did not.
And that's something you've now told this jury for the very first time, correct?
Yesterday, yes.
All right. You never mentioned that he was running alongside the black truck in any of your statements?
In the statements, no.
All right. You never mentioned that you were worried about the person in the black truck because you saw the person trying to attack his truck?
Can I refer to the notes?
Sure.
Look. No, I just say that he's running back to that truck. I did not say that that he was attacking that vehicle in this thing.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to when you're parked at Holmes and Satilla.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so at that point, during what we see here with Mr. Bryan going up and turning around, Mr. Arbery had actually run to your white truck.
Yes, he has ran to my white truck once already at this point.
All right, and you ran forward toward him. correct?
When he turned and ran back, I went to follow him and decided that that's the last thing I needed to do, and I came back. And he ran around the corner, and I lost sight of him. Yes, ma'am.
At that point that he ran to your truck and then ran away from your truck, had his hands out at his side?
He did. Well, he was, yeah, running.
He was running?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Didn't run to your truck and pull out a weapon?
He ran to the truck, but I was directing to the truck, but didn't pull out anything. No, ma'am.
And so he runs up. How close did he get to the truck the very first time?
Probably from me to you at the furthest, I would say. It was close. Yes, ma'am.
And you got out of your truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You got out with a shotgun that time?
I did not.
So you got out of your truck and you yelled at him. Stop.
As he was getting close to me, yes, I was yelling at him at that point to stop. Yes, ma'am.
And he turned around to run back?
He did.
Didn't threaten you in any way?
No.
Didn't verbally threaten you?
Not
like
verbally.
Yell at you?
Not verbally, no.
Didn't swear at you?
Didn't swear.
Didn't say anything?
Did not.
Didn't pull out a gun?
He did not pull out a gun.
Turned around and ran away?
Once he got from me to you, directed to me, once I reached into my truck is when he turned and ran away. Yes, ma'am.
So at that point, you're reaching into your truck, and he sees you do this?
Yes.
He turns and runs away?
He did. Yes, ma'am.
So now, we see him running back. You said he ran up around the dog leg, right?
He did. Correct.
And at that point, we see him running back down the dog leg. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So he got back to that blue mailbox and then had to turn around and headed back towards you.
I believe he was past the blue mailbox.
So he got past the blue mailbox.
Yeah, he was completely out of sight.
Right. But now, in the video, we can see that he's turned around and is heading back toward you.
That's correct.
And at this point, he's pinned between the two pickup trucks.
He is between two pickup trucks. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we're going to freeze frame it right here. You've raised your shotgun at him at this point.
At that point, I did. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he's 30 to 40 yards away from you.
That's what I was put on the. That's what I said in the statement and wrote, I believe. Thinking back on it now, I think it was 30 to 40 feet. It was closer to 30, 40 yards. It was 30, 40 yards, what, 120 feet? He was not that far away from me.
All right. And at this point right here, hasn't said anything to you?
No, he has not said anything yet. No, ma'am.
Hasn't verbally threatened you?
Verbally, no.
Still running with his hands at his sides?
Directly towards me, yes, ma'am.
Hasn't pulled out a gun?
Hasn't seen a gun weapon yet, no, ma'am.
And hasn't shown you a weapon this entire time?
He has not.
Hasn't said a word the entire time?
Not one time.
All he's done is run away from you?
Run past me, yes, ma'am.
And you pulled out a shotgun and pointed it at him?
Running directly towards me, and this is now the second time on the road coming directly, and then watching how he interacted with the pickup truck in that general location when I pulled it first time, attacking the truck, and then seeing him interact with the vehicle on Burford, saying that the police are coming, him turning and running, on top of seeing Mr. Albenzi pointing, and the whole February 11th episode. I was under the impression, and I was, at this point, it was, this guy can be a threat, and he is coming directly to me. Yes, I pointed the shotgun at him to deter him from coming directly to me, which was effective at that point there.
So you're under the impression, is that right? You're under the impression, because of all those things that you just mentioned, that what, that he could be a threat to you?
Yes.
Now, let's take a look at State's Exhibit 129. All right. Your father is in the pickup truck, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And he has his .357 Magnum, correct?
He has it, yes.
All right. And this is when you finally have given him the phone and said, call 911.
Seconds before this is when I gave him, when I dialed 911 after I realized that I was misunderstood, that he has not called 911 or had not called 911, and realized the error and called, and then gave my dad the phone once I saw Mr. Arbery coming back at me this third time. Gave it to him, once he was coming around that dog leg. Yes, ma'am.
And your father had 30 years of law enforcement, is that correct?
I believe so.
All right. So, and he knows how to take care of himself, doesn't he?
He knows how.
Oh, I know. And he's got a handgun with him, right?
Yes.
And he's on higher ground, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah, I would say higher ground. I'd say vulnerable.
And you never once, anywhere in your police statement, said you were ever worried about your father or him being attacked at all. Never said that once in any of your statements.
In the statements, I guess not. No, ma'am.
So at this point, you and your dad are both yelling at Mr. Arbery to stop.
I am yelling. I'm sure my dad is, but I was not paying attention to what my father was saying.
All right. So at this point in time, you are right next to your pickup truck in the doorway, right?
I'm right in the crux of it. Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. And Mr. Arbery is moving this way, and then he's moving that way, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you have now moved yourself out of that crux of the doorway into the roadway. Is that right?
Yes, because when I drew down on him, and then because he was coming directly toward me, focused in on me, and I drew down on him, he immediately broke his direction and went to the right. When he went to the right, I came to the left to gain distance. I was thinking that what I would do, or anybody else, would go across the yard, would run across the yard. Well, as I was going across, I saw that he turned and started directing towards me on the road again, and then turned a third time and then went back to the side of the vehicle. So I was trying to gain distance.
Gain distance. So you're expecting that he should take action to get away from you because you're pointing a shotgun at him.
I was not wanting him to come to charge me, to attack me, which I was assuming was happening. Yes, that's exactly what I was doing.
So him running down this road, being pursued by Mr. Bryan's truck, is him attacking you.
The last time that I saw Mr. Bryan's truck was when I was at a stop just before where I'm at now, and he was was all over that truck. And they left, and I never saw that truck turn around, and then Mr. Arbery is coming back to me, yelling at him, stop, directing to me. He wasn't going to the left, he wasn't going to the right. He was coming straight to me that first time. I was thinking, all right, he's going to try to get in this truck, or he's going to try to attack me or my dad or who knows what. He was acting weird. He was acting funny when I was trying to talk to him prior. So I'm on alert. He turns, runs off, comes back. I'm sure I saw Mr. Bryan's truck in this instance, but I was focused on what I perceived as a threat. So I don't even remember the question.
Well, I think the question is, you didn't know what he was doing except continuing to run away from Mr. Bryan's truck.
No, he was coming towards me.
All right, but you just said, who knows what? You didn't know what this guy was going to do, right?
I did not.
And all he had done so far is run away from you, right?
He has ran past me and ran away, and I let him run away, yes. Yes.
But at this time, you're not letting him run away. You're pointing a shotgun at him, correct?
I am not letting him run to me, directly to me.
And he doesn't. He runs around there, right?
He did.
Mm-hmm. And comes around that corner, and you have closed the distance yourself on him, haven't you?
I have gone to the front of my truck. I did not go to the passenger side of my truck at that time. I was trying to keep an eye on him to make sure that he didn't try to get in my truck or try to get to my dad or who knows, go into the passenger side or what. I was trying to keep an eye on him, and I would think that he's avoided me once I aimed the shotgun at him. If he sees me at the front of the truck, then he will not come back around, which I was thinking was more than likely was going to happen, and then he would continue to go.
So at this point in time, you could have stepped closer to your pickup truck and kept that pickup truck between you and him, correct?
Can you say that again?
Sure thing. You have moved out in the road, you've aimed this shotgun at Mr. Arbery.
I did.
Mr. Arbery goes to the passenger side of the truck,
Yes.
okay? Your dad is still yelling at him because we can hear him go, "Stop, goddammit, stop," right?
Yes.
You could have easily just stepped back to your pickup truck and watched him keep going, right?
I could have, yes, but I still didn't know what he could have done right there where I couldn't see him. And to get closer to the pickup, to get closer to Dad, to get to the truck, if he's going to try to come to the truck, I will be right there. So I was thinking that he was a threat, that he might go after myself, my father, or the truck. I wanted to be right there to deter him or to be able to handle it if I needed to.
So you also could have stepped around the back of the truck and followed him in the path that way. Is that right?
Yes, but then he would have to open, unrestricted run around the truck and into my open door into my pickup truck and could have took the truck.
So you're telling this jury that a man who has spent 5 minutes running away from you, you're now thinking is somehow going to want to continue to engage with you, someone with a shotgun, and your father, a man who's just said, "Stop or I'll blow your fucking head off," by trying to get in their truck?
That's what it shows, yes, ma'am.
He comes around the front of the truck, and you are right there with that shotgun, correct?
I was coming around, and then as soon as I was at the front corner panel, he turned, and yes, we were on each other.
That's your head right here.
That is my head.
All right. You heard the medical examiner testify that Mr. Arbery's hand was between him and the shotgun, and he was shot here into his torso, correct?
That's the theory, yes, ma'am.
That was the medical examiner giving his opinion, correct?
His opinion, I'm sorry, correct.
Okay. And you saw the digital evidence that backed that up with the arterial spurt from his arm before the first 2 shots, correct?
Yes.
All right. You testified yesterday that Mr. Arbery grabbed your shotgun.
That's correct.
All right. Do you remember Detective Nohilly specifically asking you if he grabbed your shotgun?
I do.
All right. And you then said, you want to take a look at it?
Page 30, which page, 31?
Let's see if I find it for you. Page 44.
44.
So do you remember describing the first interaction that you had with him? When he came around the corner?
Reading it, yes, ma'am.
All right, so you told Detective Nohilly that he came up, meaning Mr. Arbery, And then I think that's when he hit me or started striking. He was on me. He had my shirt, or something to that point. I had the gun. I was too close to draw down on him. I did like that, and he's still fighting, and I was just like, and at that time, you're showing Detective Nohilly that you had the gun like this, correct?
Yes.
And Detective Nohilly specifically asked you, do you remember if he grabbed the shotgun at all? And your response was, I want to say he did, but honestly, I cannot remember. I mean, me and him were face to face the entire time. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, and I was trying to think of that exact moment. Trying to give him as much detail as possible under the stress and all this going on. It was obvious that he had the gun from what I was saying in here, rereading it, that he had the weapon the way that I was describing it. But why I said he did not have the gun at that second, I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, that's what I said. I want to say he did, but I honestly cannot remember.
So you didn't shoot him because he grabbed the barrel of your shotgun. You shot him because he came around that corner, and you were right there, and you just pulled that trigger immediately.
No, I was struck, and we were face to face and being struck, and that's when I shot. So he came up, I think it was when we were hit, he started striking, he was on me, he had a shirt or something to that point, and I had the gun. And I was too close to draw on him.
So you're saying that all of that took place. He's got your shirt, he's striking you, you've got the gun up in this thing, and you can't draw down on him, and it's a struggle, and he's on you, and you're going back and forth in front of the truck? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what happened?
That's on the video, yes ma'am.
Okay. And he was shot right here in the torso, and it all came up, all pellets right back here. Okay? So, your gun was parallel to the ground. Yes?
Yeah, if you grab a shotgun and snatch it away, it will straighten a shotgun out, yes ma'am.
All right, so which one was it? Was it like this, or was it like this?
It was obviously like that in the video, yes ma'am. It happened so fast, and trying to recall and everything, I've obviously missed every minute detail.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you chose not to do with this matter, okay? You could have made sure that you and your dad called the police from your house at 230 Satilla Drive before you ever got in that pickup truck, correct?
I could have, but I was under the impression that he has called the police when we left there.
And you could have just continued to drive behind Mr. Arbery and not even speak to him or confront him at all. Isn't that true?
I could have, yes.
And you could have just let him run away when he took off in front of Mr. Bryan's house. From the Night Owl video we saw, you could have just gone, okay, he's running, we'll just, let him go, or just drive behind him really slowly, right?
Could have and did after I realized that he was not going to talk to me and turn around and ran away.
And you could have stayed in your truck over on Holmes Drive, right?
Could have, yes.
And you could have stayed in your truck until he ran by and then driven away to go ahead and follow him, right?
I could have, yes.
not once, during your statement to the police, did you say that you and your father were trying to arrest Mr. Arbery, did you?
In the statement?
Yeah, to the police.
No, ma'am.
All right. You never told the police that you said to Mr. Arbery, you're under arrest, correct?
I did not.
In fact, you never did tell Mr. Arbery, you're under arrest for the crime of fill in the blank.
I didn't have time. I was still trying to get him to stop.
Let's talk a bit about your attitudes towards sort of vigilantism, okay? You've posted several times on Facebook some things, and we talked about one of them in response to Kim Ballesteros, where it's like you're playing with fire on this side of the neighborhood. Do you remember posting that?
Yes.
All right. And in response to another post about crime on the website, you responded, arm up, correct?
Was that the Ballesteros one?
July 1st, 2019, a post by Lindy Kofer. Your first response was arm up. Do you remember that? Would you like to see it?
Yes, please. I would.
Well, I think your attorneys want to see it first.
Probably so.
I'll show it.
Thank you.
Is that a fresh recollection that you said to arm up?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
In addition, back in January of 2019, do you recall having a Facebook conversation with a Lacey Allison Cox?
I do.
All right. And at that point, do you remember telling her about how she felt that you need to make examples out of somebody if they steal stuff? And you said, that's right, hope y'all catch the vermin.
That's correct.
All right. In addition, she was kind of worried about her father because she said, we have had a lot of trouble with...
Object to hearsay, Your Honor. I guess this is a post connected with the witness? It's not in court?
I'll ask a better question.
Thank you.
Do you remember
I'm not
Oh,
sure
sorry.
what the context was, so to the extent it may have been hearsay, it's sustained.
Okay.
Okay, I will rephrase. Do you remember telling her that your old man is the same as her old man, which is slap crazy, old as dirt, and doesn't care about going to jail? Do you remember that?
I don't think I wrote that.
Okay.
We are watching in on the Travis McMichael testimony at the trial on the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in the NBC News Now studios. I want to bring in Chuck Rosenberg, an NBC News legal analyst who's been watching this along with us. Chuck, a bit of a pause here in the activity. Just your thoughts so far on what you've heard this morning.
Sure, Aaron. The prosecution, I think, has done a very good job in the last hour or so, trying to show to the jury that there was no provocation, that the decision by the gentleman on the stand now to pull the trigger was his own decision. He wasn't provoked, that they were pursuing Mr. Arbery in a sense, and that there was no justification. Remember, the defendants are making a claim of self-defense. And to me, so far, at least based on what I've heard, Aaron, it rings hollow.
All right, let's listen back into the prosecutor here, still questioning the witness.
She said, have to make an example out of somebody. You said, that's right. Hope y'all catch the vermin, correct?
I did.
So your attorney has repeatedly stated a recurring theme here for you, that when seconds count, the police are minutes away. You heard him say that numerous times?
I've heard him say it, yes.
Okay. Is that your statement?
It's not.
Then why is your attorney saying that?
I guess that's what he believes.
Okay. That's not what you believe.
I can agree with that, but I don't think I've said that.
I'll go ahead and pass the defendant back.
Can you read it? Briefly. You've been cross-examined a bit about why you were making certain decisions to approach or not Mr. Arbery.
Yes, sir.
Or what you thought about when he was approaching you.
That's correct.
And you've been shown your transcript, the statement that you had with Officer Nohilly. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Take a look at page 7, line 1.
Line 1.
Can you recall what you said to Officer Nohilly there?
Objection. Inappropriate question. This is not a prior consistent or prior inconsistent statement at this time.
It's a rehabilitation of the witness after he's been cross-examined about his intent and why he made the decisions this day. This is a prior statement by him that is consistent with his testimony and to rehabilitate him after cross-examination. It's perfectly permissible. He's been questioned extensively, Your Honor, about what he said.
You're rehabilitating him on
Yes,
what
sir.
you're claiming to be that statement.
Okay. What do you say, page 7, line 1?
1 to just line 1, or
Well, so we can make sure I limit.
or the full statement before the officer.
The first full sentence there.
Okay.
You haven't read it out loud, or if he remembers the statement?
Yeah.
How are we doing this?
You haven't, just read it, what he said to the officer.
Well, objection at that point.
Okay.
Improper.
Do you recall what you said to the officer?
I do.
Don't read it. What did you
Okay.
say to the officer?
I told, it was, to close it down, that,
Let me do this. What date were you speaking about when you were talking to the officer?
I was speaking of February 11th, when I saw him, the first time that I encountered him.
Okay. And did you tell the officer or give the officer an impression of what you thought about Mr. Arbery at that time?
Yes, I said that when I stepped out that he was not there, he wasn't clearly there, and he reached into his pocket.
What did you mean by clearly not that Mr. Arbery clearly was not there?
The way that he was interacting with me, the way that he was reacting to just being caught creeping or lurking in the shadows to reach to a pocket and then just stay, I would say, bold, or having a brazen moment where you do that and then just go into the house, continue to do what you were doing. It was not, it was off. It just wasn't, it was
Did you share this with Officer Nohilly a couple hours after
I
this
did.
incident?
I did, yes, sir.
All right. If you'll go to page 9, line 3. Before you do that, at any point in time, did you try to describe Mr. Arbery's behavior as you were interpreting it on Burford Road? To Officer Nohill?
I did, yes.
Okay. And do you recall how you described his behavior?
Yes.
Okay. How did you describe it?
Funny, acting funny, clearly not there.
Okay, let me stop you. What do you mean by acting? What did you mean by acting funny?
The way that his facial expressions when I first pulled up, you know, the anger, and then not speaking, not talking at all. It wasn't like ignoring me or you know, trying to ignore me. It was just the way that he was expressing himself. He just wasn't talking. He was in an anger state, and
what was your interpretation of that?
That he could be relevance.
Goes to his conduct.
Speculation and not relevant as to his interpretation.
I think it is relevant. It's not speculating, it's just his interpretation.
It's sustained.
Did you ever indicate to Officer Nohilly that you felt something was just not right with Mr. Arbery?
I did.
Okay. Do you recall ever indicating to Officer Nohilly that you were just wanting to watch him and hope that he would continue to run past you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You were
All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
Why don't you just go ahead and leave those there. Thank you. Not sure whose transcripts those are. So why don't you go ahead and step down. Whoever left their transcripts up there, if you go ahead and grab them. Figure out where we are, and a little early to break for lunch.
You may have a brief witness. Just give me a minute.
All right, you've been watching the trial around the killing of Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia. We wanted you to be able to hear the testimony from one of the defendants in this case, Travis McMichael, and it looks like the defense team will continue on with calling other witnesses now. It seems at this point as though the presentation of this particular witness, of this defendant, has concluded. I want to turn back to Chuck Rosenberg. Chuck, you still with me?
Yes, sir.
We've been listening to Jason Sheffield, the defense attorney, redirect with his client, the defendant here, Travis McMichael. He said that he wanted to rehabilitate the witness. In legal terms, can you explain what that means for us?
Absolutely. Once a witness testifies, either in the government's case in chief or the defendant's case, Aaron, they are cross-examined by the other side. So here, Mr. McMichael was called by the defense. He is one of the defendants, and then cross-examined by the prosecutor, by the government. And she scored a number of points. She made a number of important points by cross-examining him about his self-defense claim. And so Mr. Sheffield, the gentleman you see in the picture right now, wanted to rehabilitate him, help sort of smooth over some of the bumps that were created during his cross-examination. It's an interesting concept, right? The jury is hearing lots of back and forth. They're hearing lots of facts. They're hearing cross-examination. So Mr. Sheffield, the defense lawyer, must have thought there was some damage done to his client. That's the notion of rehabilitation, Aaron.
So I understand that, but to use the word in court in front of a jury, I think, to me, when I hear that word rehabilitate, I immediately think some damage must have been done. As a defense attorney, would you normally have some concern that the jury would hear that word as well and think, oh, maybe let me rethink about something that was just said, or does it stand to do any harm, I guess is what I'm really asking to the defendant.
Yeah, I don't think it does any lingering harm, but I think you raise a really savvy point, Aaron. The jury is watching and listening to everything. Mm-hmm. And I was a prosecutor for many years. I've had witnesses that I've called in my case in chief as a prosecutor. They were cross-examined. If I had additional questions to ask them in my second round, what we call redirect, I take your point. I don't think I would ever use the word rehabilitate. I would say, Your Honor, I have a few brief questions. I'd like to clear something up. Or may I ask one or two questions, Your Honor, to set the record straight? I think there are much more tactful ways of doing that. So point well taken, Aaron.
So what do you make of Travis McMichael's testimony in general? He said at the beginning that he wanted to give his side of the story. That's the reason that he was taking the stand. A lot of people were surprised to see him take the stand in this case. What do you make of this as part of a strategy for the defense team here?
So a couple of things. First, it's unusual to see a defendant take the stand at all. Most don't. They have a Fifth Amendment right not to, and that is a very, very difficult decision for a defendant and their client. Second, once you take the stand and you waive your Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, you subject yourself to cross-examination. So third, you would only do that, I think, and again, I was a prosecutor, not a defense attorney, but you would only do that if you have a really compelling story and it would withstand scrutiny and it would hold up under cross-examination. And the way you test that, Aaron, is by going through mock cross-examinations prior to trial. So they must have made a determination. I'm sorry, let me be more specific. The defense must have made a determination that Mr. McMichael had a compelling story to tell and that he would hold up well under cross-examination. I don't think that's the case. I don't think his story was compelling, and I don't think he held up particularly well.
All right, and we will see what the impact is that that testimony has on the jury here as the hours and days go by. Chuck Rosenberg, former federal prosecutor, MSNBC, NBC News legal analyst. We appreciate your time today, Chuck. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And we will take a pause here on NBC News Now and return with more news coverage.